All right, let's talk about something that might sound, well, a little dry, financial accounting. But stick with me, because we're not just going to stare at spreadsheets. We're going to uncover a story, a real story of survival, of a business on the brink, and how these numbers, this data, became its secret weapon for an incredible comeback.
I mean, it's the biggest question out there for any company, right? When things go wrong, and I mean really wrong, why do some businesses just collapse, while others, they fight back, they adapt, and they win? Well, the answer is often hiding in plain sight. It's in the numbers. You just have to know how to read the story they're telling.
So to really see what I'm talking about, let's take a trip. We're heading over to Kelantan, Malaysia, to check out a small company called MyBatikCraft. Now, these guys make beautiful, handmade batik clothing. Amazing stuff. But when the pandemic hit, well, their world was turned completely upside down. They were right on the edge of a cliff. And things got bad fast. It was like a perfect storm. First, their sales just cratered. Then, all the beautiful clothes they'd made were just sitting there, piling up in a warehouse, costing them money. And the worst part? The cash they needed to pay rent, pay their people, it was just vanishing. It was a total recipe for disaster. So what do you do in a situation like that? You could panic, you could guess, but they didn't. Instead, they turned to this incredibly powerful tool, a sort of diagnostic for their business. They decided it was time for a full financial health check, and their toolkit was going to be financial accounting. So what even is financial accounting? Honestly, the best way to think about it is like the language of business. It's the system for recording, adding up, and then reporting where all the money goes. But here's the key. This isn't just boring bookkeeping. Not at all. It's about creating a crystal clear picture of what's happening so you can actually make smart decisions. And this whole health check thing really boils down to 3 key reports. You can think of them like 3 different doctors. Each one looks at a different part of the business's health, and each one answers one simple but totally critical question. First up, you've got the income statement. This one's job is to answer the most basic question of all. Are we profitable? Simple as that. It's basically money in versus money out. It adds up all your sales, your revenue, and then subtracts everything you spent over a certain time, say 3 months. The number at the bottom tells you if you made a profit or a loss. Okay, next is the balance sheet. This one asks a different question. What do we own and what do we owe? Think of it like a photograph, a snapshot of the company's financial health on one specific day. On one side, you list everything you own, your assets. On the other side, everything you owe, your liabilities. And it all has to, well, balance. That's where it gets its name. And last but definitely not least, the cash flow statement. Now, for a company in trouble, this might be the most important one of the bunch. It answers the question, where is our cash actually going? Because, being profitable on paper doesn't mean anything if you don't have actual cash to pay your bills. Cash is king, right? This statement tracks every single dollar coming in and going out. Okay, so that's the theory, right? The 3 big reports. But how did this actually help our friends at MyBatikCraft? I mean, how did it pull them back from the edge? Well, this is where the story gets really good. Because they didn't just file these reports away. No way. They used them as a battle plan to take very specific, very decisive action. First, they looked at their income statement, and it was practically screaming at them. Their cost of goods sold, which is just a fancy way of saying what they paid for the fabric and dyes for their batik, it was through the roof. So what did they do? Armed with this hard data, they went straight to their suppliers, laid it all out, and renegotiated their contracts. Boom! An instant cut to their biggest expense. Then they looked at the balance sheet, and it pointed to another huge problem. They had tons of cash just sitting there. Literally, it was tied up in all that unsold inventory collecting dust in a warehouse. So they made a huge strategic change. They switched to what's called a just-in-time system, meaning they only made products as orders came in. That move immediately freed up a ton of cash and cut their storage costs. And finally, that all-important cash flow statement. It revealed a massive weakness. There was barely any cash coming in from their regular sales. Their old way of doing business was completely broken. So what was the fix? They made a hard pivot online. They launched a web store, started taking digital payments, and just like that, they opened up a whole new river of cash flowing right into the business. So you see the pattern? They'd find a problem in the numbers, and they'd take direct action. But did it actually work? I mean, did all these changes make a difference? Oh, you better believe it. The results were nothing short of remarkable. First off, by talking to their suppliers, they chopped their cost of goods sold down by a full 15%. Then, that new inventory system, it cut their storage costs by 20%. That's cash that used to be a pile of fabric, now back in their bank account.
And moving online? That boosted their monthly cash coming in by a staggering 30%. All of a sudden, they weren't just treading water anymore. They were actually building a stronger, healthier company for the future.
But all of that, all those improvements, they all led to the one number that matters most, the big one, the number that proved their whole strategy was a massive success.
Are you ready? A 25% increase in their net profit. And get this, they did it in just 6 months. 6! They went from the absolute brink of disaster to being stronger than they'd ever been, all because they finally learned how to listen to the story their numbers were trying to tell them. And really, that's the big idea here. Financial accounting isn't about looking backwards. It's not a history report. It's a roadmap for the future. It's the tool that helps a business navigate through the storm and find its way to a much better place. You know, every single business out there, from the coffee shop on your corner to the biggest companies in the world, has a story just like this one hidden inside its numbers. The only question is whether anyone's listening. So, think about it. What story are the numbers telling in a business you know?